And welcome back to the Daily Wrap from a snowy New York City. I'm Joe Concha, joined by Rick Unger, Heather Hansen, and Lisa Jandovitz. So, our friends over at Fox News releasing an interesting poll today, gauging public opinion over U.S. efforts against terrorism. Here are some of the highlights. 53% of Americans feel less safe than before 9/11. More than half also think the White House is downplaying the threat from ISIS more than stopping it. 64%, that's nearly two-thirds, think Islamic extremists are making gains rather than losing, and a majority of Americans believe the U.S. should increase airstrikes, drone strikes, and send a limited amount of ground troops to Syria and Iraq to fight Islamic militants. So let's do our own little in-studio poll here. Do you feel more safe, Lisa, than you did even 1 year ago?
No.
Why is that?
Not at all. I mean, I think because of what we're seeing is going on around the world, and I know that John Kerry would like us to feel that the world is safer, but the director of intelligence tells us otherwise. Last year was one of the worst years ever in terms of global terrorism. I know that the president would like us to feel that the media is overblowing this whole thing, but we see the beheadings, we see Paris, we see the men that were picked up in Brooklyn, we see a man being burned alive. We see this going on, and ISIS growing. And I don't know how you cannot have a fear that it's going to come to America again.
Heather, do you think because of social media and ISIS's ability to communicate all these horrific acts, whether it be the beheadings of Jim Foley and Stephen Sotloff, or whether that be obviously the burning that you mentioned of the Jordanian pilot, and we see these images and you say, boy, these guys are serious and they could be a real threat. But do you think they actually have the ability, the capability to affect us here thousands of miles away overseas?
Sure. I mean, look at the Boston bombing 2 years ago. We had, and now we're going through this trial. And when you listen to that testimony, it is so heart-wrenching, and it takes me right back to that day. And that was just 2 years ago in April when that happened. And I agree with Lisa. I think that we are less safe, and I think it also includes Russia and Syria. I mean, we have a president who just doesn't seem to have the heart for international conflict. He would prefer to focus on domestic issues, and I think he would probably admit that. You know, immigration, Obamacare, those types of things. And I don't think that we're as safe as we were.
But Rick, with the Boston bombings, and I was playing contrarian there because I also don't feel we're as safe as we were a year ago, mainly because ISIS and obviously we're a target and they're going to come here at some point. But the Boston bombers were lone wolves, basically. They weren't a part of ISIS, right? Now, granted, they were acting in the name of Islam or Allah and to affect American foreign policy, yes,
right.
But your thoughts, you're smirking.
Guys, yeah, I am, because do you know that your chances of dying from cancer this year are not as bad as last year?
Yeah.
Right. Being safe in the world is not simply about terrorism.
Absolutely. Of
okay.
course.
Well, we
So,
say
but no, you're saying, of course, I'm blowing it up, but the reality is every year we're safer, not because of anything the president has done, but in fact, every year we are safer.
But
we're talking
away
about
from
terrorism.
foreign policy. I mean, that's what people are focused on.
The question wasn't about
It was about
terrorism.
ISIS.
The question was, do you feel safer or not? Now, let's talk about terrorism,
In the context
okay?
of ISIS.
We are not, ISIS is not winning, we are not winning. We are, how many months into this fight? It's like asking us 6 months into World War II, well, who's winning? Okay, nobody's winning yet. Do you think we will eventually win?
If they're not losing, then we're not winning.
Do you think we will eventually win?
Well, it's been more than...
I think eventually
That's a
is
pretty
too
easy
long
question, guys.
I
Will
don't
we
know.
eventually win?
Let's talk territory. They have slightly
Will they
expanded their
come and
territory
invade the
since
United
ground.
States?
Talking specifically
Not
ISIS,
invade,
you're
but they
talking
could
about
attack us.
Al-Qaeda.
One at a
attack
time.
us.
One at a time.
They
please.
can attack us. They won't. But all I'm arguing for here, and I'm not defending anybody, but I think it's important that Americans be realistic. The question that was asked in this poll, are you safe or not? They're wrong on the poll because we are safer. We may not be safer from terrorism, but that wasn't the question in the poll. Let's keep it real. Now, could ISIS attack us here? Absolutely, as could any other terrorist organization. ISIL scares me like they scare you, but let's keep it real.
But I think that's what people were responding to in the poll.
Well, but just because people respond in the poll doesn't mean they stopped and thought, you know what? If I was alive 10 years ago, I'd be dead from that cancer. I'd be dead from that heart
I don't
disease.
think
People
cancer
weren't
was
thinking
anywhere in
of
the
cancer.
context of that poll.
It's not part of
That's
that.
right. You're right, because they aren't thinking about it. When you decide if you're safer in the world, it's not just about
Rick,
terrorism.
okay, but you're taking away from the entire poll had to
really
do with,
not.
are you
Right,
more afraid
exactly.
of ISIS? The entire poll
Put the
had
poll
to do...
back up.
Go
Put
for
the
it.
poll
Put
question
the
back
poll
up.
back up, please.
The poll had to do with
Right,
ISIS.
exactly.
It had
Poll
to be...
question back up.
But
The
Before
ISIS threat.
9/11.
What was
Down,
the question?
White House is
ISIS threat.
downplaying
Poll
the
on
ISIS
terrorism.
threat.
Poll on
Example
terrorism.
What was the
extremists.
question?
Poll on terrorism.
Does it say poll on terrorism?
Yeah,
Yes,
at
it
the top.
does.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right.
And to step away from that is really just taking away from the real argument, which
No,
is
it's
what
not.
are we
It's
going
the
to do to
point.
fight this? And it's more than just ISIS. It's Al Qaeda before ISIS. It's Boko
Right.
Haram. It's all of these different threats to our
Do
country.
you feel more dangerous from Al Qaeda today than you did a year ago? Are you more afraid of Al Qaeda?
I think that there are offshoots of every one of these groups
I asked
that are
a yes or no question.
It-
Are you
of
as
Al
fearful of
Qaeda,
Al Qaeda?
but yes.
You are.
Yes, because I think that every one of these groups has the opportunity and
I'm
the
not as
possibility
afraid of Al Qaeda
to
as I was a
spin
year
off.
ago.
But-
I'm more afraid of ISIL than I was a year ago. I
Right,
didn't know
and
they
next year it's
existed.
going to be something else.
That's my
That's
point.
the point. But that is
There's
the point.
terrorism in the world.
That
And
it-
we have to end it there. That was a very interesting segment. So, coming up next, it's potluck time, a much friendlier part of the show. And you're watching the Daily Wrap only on Newsmax TV, on DirecTV, Dish, and Verizon Fios.